into a conflict. My family was a military family. I grew up in a Marine family. My father was a lieutenant colonel in the Marines. We were stationed in Marine bases until I was 16. My brother graduated from Camp Lejeune High School in 1963. His best buddy, his very best buddy, graduated from high school with him and immediately joined the Marine Corps when he was 17 years old. David Battle. David Battle joined the Marine Corps right after he graduated with my brother, and he was my brother's best friend. Well, years later, when I went to the White House with Ronald Reagan, I went to the inaugural ceremony, and then I had off for about a week before I would, or a couple weeks before I would actually start on the payroll in the White House. My family, my mother, my father, and my brother came to the inauguration in 1980, and then we rented a car and traveled down to Camp Lejeune to see where we used to live, to see if we could remake old acquaintances. And we found my brother's best and dearest friend, Sergeant David Battle. He was well on his way to retirement. He'd already bought himself, only a couple years away, and he'd bought himself a boat that he was going to dig clams and mussels and out in the inlets in North Carolina and sell it to the local fish markets. He would have his retirement. He had served two tours of duty in Vietnam. A wonderful man with a wonderful family. His parents were there. His lovely wife was there with their two children. And we had an evening that I will never forget, a great North Carolina evening. And then the next day, my family drove to Washington, and I entered the White House and resumed and took my place at President Reagan's staff. President Reagan, as I have mentioned, sent the Marines, deployed our American Marines into Beirut. It was not a good decision. It was something that was it was a risky proposition and had very little chance of success. I knew that, and I actually mentioned it to a lot of people. But what especially caught my eye when I was looking at that was that the State Department had initiated a policy, a rule of engagement that was accepted by the military, forced on them by the State Department, that the Marines would not be permitted to have bullets in their guns. Their clips in their rifles would not be in their rifles, would be in pouches, because the State Department was so afraid they might get trigger happy if they were shot at. Yeah. So we sent our Marines in. I went around to the offices in the White House, and I pounded on the desk saying, what are we doing here? How can we send our people in to try to defend us and tell them they can't, our soldiers or Marines can't have bullets in their guns? This is insane. And I was told over and over again, don't worry, Dana, don't worry. Bud McFarlane, George Shultz, Jim Baker, they're all former Marines. They're going to take care of this. And it didn't get taken care of, because after I left and was assured it would be taken care of, that piece of paper ended up on the bottom of the stack. On the bottom of the stack. And our troops, our Marines, continued for weeks to be in harm's way without bullets in their guns. And again, I assumed that these people were going to handle it. I was told that they would. And then that horrible day when an Islamic terrorist drove a truck filled with explosives through the guard gate outside our Marine compound, and the Islamic terrorist smiling because he knew that our guards could not stop them because their guns were unloaded, and he drove that truck into the Marine barracks and blew 290 Marines to hell. 290 Marines. And I looked desperately. I looked to see who it was. And the first name on the list of casualties was Sergeant David Battle, my brother's best friend. I went into my office and I wept that day. And then I stopped crying because I said, I'm going to make a resolution right here and now that I will never cease to be pushing and try to correct a situation that I know is wrong. If it takes me being obnoxious, I will do that, because we owe it. We owe it to the people who defend us. The Sergeant David Battles They salute and march off and put themselves in harm's way. They are doing their duty. It is up to us to do our duty by them and not send them on a mission that they cannot accomplish and not send them into harm's way to lose their lives for nothing. Today we have a major decision to make in Afghanistan. It is up, I would call on all of my colleagues to stand up and be counted on this issue, seriously consider what the chances of success are, and if they agree with me that the approach being taken of sending more troops in, that we stand up and we prevent this policy, like the policy of sending our troops into Beirut without bullets in their guns, is defeated. And we should not assume that just sending those guys there will be accomplished because other people will watch over and make sure the job's done correctly and that our troops are safe. It is up to us, each and every one of us, to insist that this strategy of simply sending in more troops at $35 billion, that a strategy that's more likely to work and accomplish what we want to accomplish is put into place. A strategy that will keep faith with the Afghan people instead of just simply relying on Americans doing more of the fighting, help them rebuild their country, rearm them, arm them so they can do their own fighting. We owe it to our troops. We owe it to our Marines. We owe it to the Sergeant David Battles who have given their lives over the years for our country to make sure we do our duty by them as they do their duty by us. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time.